Welcome back to Wine, Whiskey, and Words, the podcast where we sip, rant, and philosophize like two slightly buzzed sages with Wi Fi. I'm Brad, your host, wine enthusiast, music addict, and someone who believes every good conversation starts with a bold opinion and ends with, but I could be wrong. And joining me, as always, is my co host, Daniel, a man who once tried to pair boxed wine with existential dread, thinks Taco Bell counts as global cuisine, and is still emotionally recovering from the Game of Thrones finale. He's the whiskey to my wine, the chaos to my structure, and the reason we have a disclaimer at the beginning of some episodes. Together, we've tackled life's big debates: homeschool versus traditional school, shaping young minds or saving them from cafeteria pizza, buying a house versus renting, investment or expensive adult cosplay. Where in the world to travel? Spiritual awakening or beach with strong drinks and decent Wi Fi? And of course, TV shows with endings so bad, we're still in group therapy. Looking at you, Dexter. We mix in music, comedy, and a little AI magic to help us sound smarter, argue longer, and maybe even write better endings than the shows we hate. So grab a glass, lower your expectations, and let's dive into another episode of Wine, Whiskey, and Words, where the pours are heavy and the logic is negotiable.
Brad just earned the right to be the permanent intro guy on the podcast. Um, Thank you for that introduction, Brad. That was way more prepared than mine. I'm not actually here. I am an AI avatar
And that was
created.
actually help that was written with the help of AI.
No, I mean I think that really highlights what we're going to get into and why I thought it was kind of cool to talk about. So I don't really have anything to add. That was delightful and refreshing. And God, now I got to step up my outro game.
Well,
Hold on.
it is what
Uh,
it is.
yeah, this week it definitely is. Anyway, Brad. Well, I think usually at this point we talk about the drink and what have
Yeah.
you brought us?
So I have some regulars over at where I work at Cooper's Hawk, Justin and Dan, and just came back from Walla Walla, Washington,
Walla
and
Walla, Washington.
brought me this bottle of the Red Label Cabernet Sauvignon from Caprio Cellars. It's a 2022. There's not a whole lot of information about the winery, other than the winemaker and owner, um,
Penis P. Murphy.
Dennis. Dennis, God,
His
he's
signature really could use some work,
oh
but
God, help
I'm
me.
sure I'm sure it's a lovely one.
Yes, I will be tagging him in this, but so but he was been in the area for many years. So let's see. Well, you definitely get the vanilla cherry on the nose
Yeah,
right
it has a
away.
very. I know you can't get sweetness from the smell, but it does have that
Yes,
smell
the
that you would
cherry
expect.
cola.
Yeah, almost like a yeah. That's probably exactly it.
Mm.
It has something else though. There's something that's almost maybe a little musky. I don't know,
A little bit.
like a hint
It's
of
not
yeah. It's
not
mild.
too
It's
much.
very subtle. I like the nose of this. It's a very dark, unlike what I brought last week, which was kind of
I
a
like
budget bottle.
so I mean I like it, the flavor kind of fades a little quickly. So it's not a whole lot of body on this one, but I enjoy the flavor.
Yeah, it's a nice flavor. It doesn't carry too much sweetness. I know a lot of the modern popular faves like Camus and Bonanza and all tend to lean a little more heavy on the sweetness, but this one
Bonanza.
you don't get a lot of sweetness out of
No,
it.
no, no.
It's definitely on the drier end. I get a little bit of acidity to it, like, or maybe it's the tannins. I'm confusing.
No, it's a little bit of both.
Yeah,
Because I mean, even now, I still feel a little bit on the tongue, on
yeah.
the sides. I
I
like
almost get a
this.
little blueberry on the tongue as I drink it. It's nice. It's really pleasant. It's complex enough, but I agree it doesn't linger in the mouth.
Yeah.
It's a nice drinker though.
I
It's
get
a
a little bit of the blueberry.
Thank you, Dennis, and I'm sorry I made fun of your signature. This is why we can't have nice things.
So what's new with you, Daniel?
What is new, man? Well, we last week took the number one spot in our pool league, and that's super exciting. This week, I
Wow.
think we've managed to hold on to it, and that's also super exciting. Next week, next Monday is the final week to see if we can come out on top. So that's really exciting for me. I will say, like I knew I'd enjoy getting out and shooting pool, but I had no idea how much of a good supportive group it was. I mean, it's like anything. There's always going to be that 5%, 10% who are kind of unpleasant. You don't really want to be around them, but for the most part, everybody's been very welcoming, supportive, and it's kind of a game where like people from all walks of life are there. You got business owners, you got guys that are unemployed, you got painters, you got me, the IT guy. It's a little bit of everybody, so you get a lot of different backgrounds and perspectives on things. I got accused of being a liberal.
Wow. Wonder where they got that from.
No idea, no idea. But no, that was big. We also Jamie and I are no longer going on dates because last time we went on a date, we ended up buying a lot of furniture, and she said dating me is too expensive. So
Okay.
yeah, dodge that bullet.
There you go.
So it's like when you wash dishes, you break a few dishes, they don't ask you to do it. Like, hey,
Right.
don't have to go on any more dates if you buy a few pieces of furniture.
So I won't see her with you at Cooper Sunk
Yeah,
anymore?
she's like, you're on your own,
Yeah.
but no, like I said, it's been exciting, but rather like calm couple weeks, so that's nice.
There
But
you
yeah,
go.
what about you, Brad? What do you got going on?
Oh, I'll be heading down to Miami on
Ooh,
Sunday
welcome to Miami.
to commemorate to memorialize my the 1 year since my aunt passed away. So I'll be seeing some family. Then in about a week, so I have federal jury duty. So if you've been embezzling and are up in trial, I might be sitting on the jury. So
Send line.
yeah. So um, and then we've got officially less than a month till our cruise.
Yeah, yeah, it's coming up
So
fast. We gotta plan our karaoke songs.
I've already got I'm not doing a duet with you.
Come on, Islands in the
No.
Stream, right?
The lift is up where we belong. Um, if we're doing the summer nights, then I've definitely got the uh
Pants.
no, I don't have the pants. I'm doing the guys side. I'm not doing.
Uh,
I got skill, the multiplying,
well, on that
then
note,
I'm losing control.
on that note, so our topic that we can. Am I missing anything? I'm not following my
I
notes
don't
today.
think so.
Should have had AI lead this
Yeah,
part of the meeting. Um, meeting? No,
meeting
podcast.
podcast.
Whatever. Well, so last week, actually, this all started a couple weeks ago on the 4th. We were on vacation and we invited some of Mia's friends, so the early 20s crowd, down to visit, and got into a conversation with one of Mia's friends about AI and specifically the moral questions of, is it fair when AI eats people's content and then regurgitates something that might have drawn on that content for some source. And conversation was long but interesting and made me think that discussing AI was kind of a neat topic. I actually cheated a couple weeks ago and used AI to generate my show notes on this show. It may have been noticeable, but hey, I was running out of time. So, but hey, nobody grades me either.
I grade you.
Yeah, well, get used to disappointment.
I'm Jewish. I'm always used to disappointment.
But no, so I kind of wanted to just have a general discussion about AI. I think it's a neat topic, and it's definitely becoming more and more meaningful and important to us. I did do some research on the history, and I'm not going to go through all of it, but you can go all the way back to Alan Turing's machines that he used to break codes. If you really want to get into it, is we had this artificial thinker that could do things that we either couldn't do or could only do with a lot of energy and time. And machines started making things easier and things better for us. And things, went forward. We After World War II, we ended up having vacuum tubes, and then we had transistors, and then we had the integrated circuit. And now we have these companies who used to actually make, processors who are getting more into the actual processing and generating AI models and things like that. I did not realize this, but the earliest chatbot that tried to emulate a human conversationalist was 1966.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
the software was called Eliza, and much like our modern engines, it used pattern matching and substitution. So, hi, how are you? What's your name? And you give it your name, so it replaces name with your name, and it just kind of followed a bit of a pattern. It was easy to recognize that it was not a real person, but it made people start thinking that, oh, wow, like these computers can do more than just sit there and launch rockets,
Right.
things like that. So a couple other things that I thought were really interesting was that there's a guy named Jeffrey Hinton. He's referred to as the godfather of AI because he's been responsible for a lot of the software developments in terms of algorithms and things that have driven this development of AI over the decades. In 1986, he developed something called backpropagation, which is very technical, but it basically helped machines look at what they had done and go, oh, did I make mistakes? Could I have done this better? And things like that. So it really focused on a lot of uh, data, like taking these large data sets and then processing them and kind of coming up with good algorithms to help process them. So, fast forward to today, we still follow this sort of have this data, this large data set, and then use a model to analyze and evaluate that data set. And then you have just all this compute power that goes into reviewing that and using that data. Um, I think the most interesting thing that I've noticed is today, just in the last 2 years, we've had these massive leaps forward where before AI models were prone to a lot of like they call them hallucinations because if an AI model doesn't know something, it usually just makes something up, very much like I do. We'll be on cruise ships.
I've actually seen that happen multiple times when I would ask like chat GPT
Yeah,
questions, and whereas I kind of know the answer and it's gotten it wrong,
yeah, or
and
like
then I would correct it.
close, but off enough that you were like, whoa, I would have seemed like a real ass if I hadn't
Well,
read
it
that.
would be like, you know, when it would tell me that my father died 100 years ago, I'm like, well,
Right.
no, actually, they'd be like, yes, I'm sorry, you're right, I'm wrong.
Yeah. But the state of today's AI, again, it has changed a lot just in the last year in terms of the improved modeling of the data and processing of the data and the responses it generates. But everything today is based on, or most of the things today are based on what's called a large language model. Even your image stuff is based on the same kind of principles. But basically, everything is just predictive. It's just taking everything it has ever consumed. So let's say you opened your model up to all the data on the internet, which would probably be impractical to do on a routine basis. You do this like pre-training step. So you grab terabytes and terabytes of text. And if you work in IT, you understand a terabyte is a massive amount of text. If you have a terabyte of storage active on your computer at home, delete some of your porn
So,
because
so if it just for the idiots like me, you're basically saying rather than open it up to the huge amount of data, it's being predictive about what types of questions you're more likely to ask.
Sort of. So what it's like going through the process, you get this massive amount of text or data, and then you put it in a processing environment, and you have to have massive amounts of computer power, like server rooms upon server rooms of modern computing power. And what they do is they take all this data and they compress it down into this, they call it a neural network. And they build what's like a base model, which is like joined links between all the data. Like it looks at, it would find a Wikipedia page about your dad, and then it would have
Okay.
like data points about him, and they'd be linked to other things. And then after that sort of pre-training, then this is a very intensive process that takes days, weeks, whatever, um, and it's very expensive. They do what's called fine tuning. So they take that model and they swap out the data set, and um, they start uh, coaching it, sort of. They have all these people, or sometimes a collaboration between people and other AIs, that kind of feed into the model and say, "Hey, you've got data now, but here's how you need to behave. Like, here's how you need to communicate." So they will actually give it examples of, if I were to ask you this question, here is how I'd expect you to respond. And it'll give hundreds of thousands sometimes of these sample responses. And they try to get really quality data in this, where before with the pre training, it's all just like garbage. It's just a big data dump, no real, they don't care whether it's good data. It's just what's out there. But then they swap that out and they start build what's called an assistant model. And the assistant model is what we interact with when we go to Chat GPT or Copilot or whatever. The model still has all the knowledge it gained, but it's really getting geared more towards being an interactive experience.
So let me ask you this, only for the people who aren't as tech minded.
Okay.
Um, so obviously one of the fears that people have is that we're going to end up like the Terminator.
Yeah.
How far are we towards something like that?
So I think that everything I read and everything I was able to consume about this suggests that the greater minds at hand all tend to be thinking, "Hey, that's a bad idea. Like, don't you should never make the AI model the agent. It should always be the advisor." So, I one of the things I listened to was a podcast from the Art of Manliness, and they were talking about, spend 10 minutes or 10 days, I think it was, working with AI just to get it in your life. And one of the principles they suggested was, let it be the assistant in the room with you, and think about it as an assistant or a coworker that you can bounce ideas off of and talk to. And so I think the all the business minds and all those the people who seem to be thinking of these things don't really think truly giving it decision making power is a good thing. In the larger sense, it might be tactical decision making, but it's really only like, follow this purpose. Once you accomplish it, stop. So, like, if I
Right,
send a drone that's AI powered
right.
and say, blow up this building, it will blow up that building, but not empowering it to decide to blow up the whole city.
It's basically just do what I say when I ask you. Don't make any other decisions.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of, that seems to be the main mode of thought. And that actually came up on my like challenges and concerns. Like that's the scary thing. That's what all the sci-fi movies warned us about, you know.
The interesting thing, though, is that the fear's been in there for what, 30 years now, but the there when books were created, there was fear of books. When electricity was created, there's fear of electricity. When automobiles were created, there's fear of
Mhm.
automobiles. There's always been that fear of that next step.
Yeah, I mean the Industrial Revolution sparked a lot of fear, and you had, the Luddites going in and destroying the machinery. You have these historical examples of people who just were afraid of, misinformed, whatever, about the potential for technologies to disrupt. and disruption is scary. And I think what was interesting in everything I found was it wasn't really the big, like, universe ending or world ending things that were scary to me. I found it to be the smaller things. Things like there's a lot of bias that gets introduced. I mean, we had Elon Musk. I've made no uh, efforts to hide that I don't like Elon Musk. And the other day, he Grok, his baby, his AI baby, wasn't giving the responses he wanted because it was using truth and actual information. And his response was, "I'm going to change that. I'm intentionally going to make this engine biased." And a few days later, it's behaving like Hitler because of some things that he had said in the past. So, I think when you get into that and then you get into decision making, um, we've had reports that certain businesses and government entities go in and will ask the question, but not give adequate information to the model, or adequate background to the question. And if you ask something a narrow question, it's like saying, like, did you crash that car? Well, no, I didn't crash that car. I just let go of the steering wheel because I was drunk and I passed out, but the car crashed itself. Like,
Yeah.
if the engine gets asked, "Did you crash the car?" It goes, "No, I didn't crash the car."
So let me ask you, what have you found that AI is doing now that's beneficial to society? Because I
So
have something,
you
but
got something?
I have something.
I have a very long list.
Okay.
So AI can do a lot of things for you. I think what I have found, and this is a personal anecdote more than anything, but I've seen others use it as well. It is an excellent teacher. Now, you have to ask it the right questions. You have to lead it down the right path, and you have to make sure that the sources it gives you are backing up what it says. Because as I said, all AI is doing, if you ask it a question, is based on your question saying, "Oh, if I were to create something and dream up a page that answered this question, what would the first word be?" And then it says, "Okay, based on all the data in my model, what would the second word be?" And then it feeds it back in. What would the third word be? And eventually it just builds out this document. Same thing with pictures. It actually just predicts the next pixel. Like, if they ask me for this in pictures of Brad, what do these look like? And so it just
Oh God.
it builds the
Don't
next.
look too far back.
So, learning is a really powerful tool. I use it all the time for help with my software. When I'm writing code, I'll ask it for help. I'll ask it for feedback on something I've done. I'll ask it for guidance on how to do something or creative ways to do something. Best practices. I actually have a neighbor who she has a certification she has to go up for, and said, what do I do? Like, where can I learn this stuff? Because everybody wants, $10,000 for this course. And I'd say, feed it to a model. Tell it what you have to study for. Tell it, give it the rails, the guidelines that you need to do. Give it a deadline, and let it be your guide. It's very powerful. I think learning is probably the number one thing, in my opinion. It should and can be used for
I'm
now.
going to tell you something. So there's a guy. His name is Donald Fagenbaum.
Okay.
Okay. So he wrote a book, Chasing the Cure. What happened to him is he he was a medical student working long hours. And I'm going to make this long story short. He ends up in, organ failure, liver, kidney, everything is shutting down, and he ends up going into remission, then gets sick again, and they're just trying to figure out what the heck can we do, and they end up giving him like 7 different chemotherapies, and it didn't cure him, but it helped him somewhat. And so he kind of thought from that, he said, okay, so these chemotherapies were not made for my affliction, which he later found out was Castleman's disease.
Okay.
Um, but they helped somewhat. So, what else is out there that can help other diseases that they're not meant for?
Mhm.
and he's using AI for that because there's a lot of different diseases that so so for instance, Viagra was not originally meant for what it's used for today. It was meant for I think it was
Like heart
heart
something. Yeah.
issues. Um you have and I was looking this up a little bit earlier apparently before I deleted everything. Um but you've got a lot of different drugs that are being used for different projects. So um what what he does, he basically he maps every drug against every disease.
Hmm.
And then he trains the algorithm to look at this drug is good against this disease. This drug definitely doesn't work against this disease. And then he trains the algorithm to score from 1 to 10 how a drug might work against what disease. And in doing so, they're able to find, if not cures, things that will help many people out.
Yeah. So that's one of the interesting things I found is, you know, currently the funding is shifting towards private, but previously we had a lot of funding out there for universities and businesses and things like that, and individuals who were researchers to study these things and study the use of these models because what what most people, the average consumer of technology, is used to is the chatbot. Your Chat GPT, Claude is one, Microsoft's Copilot, Gemini, Meta has one called something. But anyway, there are all these chatbots where you can kind of just show up and start talking to it. And it is very generalized knowledge. It's very useful, but it doesn't really necessarily meet the needs of somebody who's trying to, figure out how to save their life by finding a new medicine. But what's when these things get a little more targeted is when you get into sort of agents. I actually at work, because the company pays for um, Copilot, an elevated version, I'm able to create agents to help me with certain things. So, what that process looks like is you go in and you tell it, okay, I want you to focus on data from these sources. I want you to use this particular website that's a resource. I want you to use these databases as a resource. I want you to use experts in this field who have a PhD, but exclude those who may write in a predatory journal and things. And you kind of refine this conversation with the AI you're working with, and you develop this agent, which rather than the guy at the bar, which I would say is more like your Chat GPT, who may or may not be helpful. You now have a guy who's a PhD candidate that you're talking to, or the AI equivalent of that. So you're able to bounce ideas off of this person with context and say, like, I want you to respond to me like you're my PhD professor, so that my responses are of higher quality. So I think that's really where we as people need to start aiming ourselves, is trying to think about what do we need AI for.
What about the argument that AI is coming for our jobs?
So I think that's a really interesting question. And my gut has told me for a long time that there are some jobs that just won't be necessary. I have someone I know um, started pointing out things that they did with AI, and the natural question is, well, if I can ask AI to do that, why do I need you? And it's like, well, uh, hmm, it's a scary thing, and I do think that AI, much like the Industrial Revolution, the guy who was breaking rocks with a hammer probably lost his job to a giant machine that breaks rocks really more efficiently. But there will always be the need for, I don't know, a plumber. So I think
Yeah.
that if you're in a role that's not labor intensive and mechanic, like where you have to actually physically do something, and you don't bring something extra to the table, the potential is there that you could lose your job.
From what I look at, it seems to me the a lot of the people in the creative fields are worried that AI is going to take their jobs. I don't think that's the case. I think that the um, primarily the jobs that it's going to take is the research jobs uh, for that. The creatives, I think, the creatives are still fine because ultimately, like that intro that I did, that wasn't a hey, write me an intro. That took several times to get the right intro that I was like, all right, this is good enough to do it.
Yep. And this was actually the crux of that conversation I had that prompted this idea in the first place. Is this person was very passionate about poetry and was very angry that she might spend, or they might, sorry, pronouns, they matter. Uh, they might spend, I don't know, a month or a year even working on this poem that is just their masterpiece. And meanwhile, I might sit down with an AI chatbot and say, I want to write a sonnet in the form of this, and I want it to talk about this, and trees, I think was the example I kept using. And I'd like a sonnet about trees, and it might give me something. And I would sit down and say, okay, I don't like this. I want you to use stylistic elements that are more in line with this, or I don't like this line. And I could spend probably equivalent amounts of time conversing with a chatbot to develop something beautiful and something wonderful. And the debate was, well, is my work and effort that I put in any less meaningful, any less creative and artistic than the work she put in or they put in? Where they put in, where they just sat down and drew on all of their resources, all these knowledge points that they had from their experiences. But really, depending on the conversation I'm having with a chatbot, it might expose me to other resources, other authors that I didn't know about. Are we really doing anything different than an AI model when we write? We're just taking all the things we've ever read and experienced and putting them into words. And if I spend effort doing this, I don't know. I watched this afternoon an Economist video um, about that very thing of, is it stealing our creativity? And most of the people seem to think that it's just changing. It's it's like when we stopped having all of our art being done with pencils and paint and chalk and charcoal and started using computers to develop art. Is it any less valuable that you use a computer to do it more efficiently? No. It's just different. And we as human beings are asked and called to change all the time.
Yeah. The in terms with the entertainment industry, you're still going to need people to fine tune,
Hmm.
to create, to give it ideas. In terms of there was a music group
Yeah,
that was found to be AI, but from what I understand, and I haven't looked into that too much, but the voices were they voices created by AI, or was it like my voice and then they fine tuned it?
yeah. It's a good question, and I agree. I think someone still has to come up with the idea. There's still a creative agent at the beginning directing the AI. And this is what I meant when I said earlier, we're not empowering AI to AI is not just out there just like, you know what I'm going to do today? I'm going to start a band. That's the difference. And I do think, you could mail it in and just be one of those lucky few, but I would argue that the music industry has always been being one of those lucky few. It was just as likely that that band was a never heard of nobody, um, that if that was generated by AI. It just so happened this one band um, made it, and I don't know. I do feel that there's quality to any art, whether it's generated by a human or AI. I get the arguments of like, well, among the 10 terabytes of data, and I cannot emphasize how much data that is. if my songs were part of that 10 terabytes, I can see an argument. Well, they used my thing to train that AI, which built it.
But the thing is that that's being said now about artists of today in the last
Right.
50 years who have been sued. What's his name? The oh my God, the the artist, Blurred Lines.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
who said he took it from Marvin Gaye.
Well, everybody
There
has their
Right.
inspirations. And if you create something new, it's you didn't yes, I guess there's a line, but one of the people in that Economist video actually said, like, I feel like the problem is that our intellectual property rules haven't kept up. And so we have all these archaic rules about ownership that don't really work in today's system. Now, I think one of the things that jumped into my mind as I was been consuming and researching this was capitalism is a challenge when it comes to AI development, because when you watch Star Trek, I'm a big Trekkie, and you have these AI systems, you have these really intelligent computers, but people lived and worked alongside of them, and everybody was able to have fulfilling and productive lives, but there was no money. Well, there was money, but it wasn't like the Starfleet didn't have money. They had these fulfilling, productive lives because they were able to pursue their interests and develop their own art alongside these computers and work with the computers without the need to have income. It does complicate things that there are a lot of starving artists out there. There are people who pour their heart and soul every day into their work and never make it anywhere, even though their work, if you see it, is beautiful. And even if they sell their stuff, they're having to sell it for nothing because people just don't, they can't afford it or they don't value it the same way they do other things. So I do think capitalism plays a role in why this is a problem. Like why AI consuming your work is a problem or making its own work is a problem, because it is true.
Or
There's only so many slots for these music producers to produce music.
does ego play a part of the problem as well?
I do think we have a bit of humanocentrism. We again, this person I was talking to, they they firmly believed that humans are superior, and I see that, in the interest of self-preservation, I do think that we should put humans first. But I don't know that I believe humans are always superior to the computers. I think sometimes a computer can do things better, and I think it's worth honoring and acknowledging that, hey, computers have a role too. Just like we honor that the guy that digs ditches is just as important as the guy that runs this Fortune 500 company.
I think you're part. Um, oh my God, my brain's not working
Do you
right
think
now.
I'm an android?
No, I don't think you're an android.
Do I dream of electric sheep?
No, God, what? Oh my God. Um, I was like, why can't I think? Romulan, Klingon,
Vulcans?
Vulcan. You're a Vulcan. That's it.
Yeah, yeah. So, like I said, I think it's a really interesting topic. I think the scary things to me, though, and here's, I'm just going to kind of run down these. I don't want to take too long,
Yeah,
but
don't take too long.
one of the things that's interesting was we actually don't really know that much about how AI engines arrive at their conclusions. They're not really good at telling us. Like if you ask an AI, like, well, how did you get there? It it's like, well, I just know this stuff. And
That's an interesting question.
so like and we just don't know. It merges all this data and links it in its own way, and it doesn't always tell us. I think that was one of the things. There was a last year there was a big scandal because a Chinese company released their model. I think it turned out to be a hoax, but one of the advantages that it cited was it could tell you how did it arrive at this conclude, or how did it arrive at at its conclusion.
So I just asked the AI, hey, how did you create this? And so it's interesting. So it says, process behind the scenes, tone matching and voice. I start by taking cues from your earlier podcast intro. Research meets relatability. I pulled from known historical reactions to major inventions, ones that were generally feared or ridiculed at first, like electricity, planes, vaccines. Um, Comedic punchline and callback structure. AI's role says I'm trained on a wide range of examples from podcasts, comedy writing, historical analysis. So when you asked for a podcast segment on inventions people thought were dangerous, I mixed factual knowledge, humor writing techniques, and your show's personality based on how you've described it and how you talk.
Yeah.
So the thing that I had asked it before, I said I basically asked it, um, what are some inventions people said would be dangerous but proved to be a boon to society? And then when I further asked it to say, write a podcast segment about it, and it came up with, so the intro for that was, all right, so here's a toast to all the inventions that were supposed to be dangerous, the ones our ancestors looked at and said, that's it, we're doomed. Spoiler alert, we weren't, in fact. Uh, these so called death machines turned out to be kind of essential. Let's run down a list of tech that got hate and then change the world. Um, and so it mentioned automobile, electricity, airplanes. It says, imagine watching a metal tube fly across the sky in 1903. People were not chill about it. They said, humans weren't meant to fly. Now it's the only way we can affordably complain about airline food in multiple time zones.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
I gotta say, like, it does some really neat things, but what I'm getting at is we can't explain how it produces that. It might be
No.
able to give some rationale behind,
Yes. Yeah.
but like we can't get to like how did you choose that next word? It
Right.
can't really tell us. It just knows. It just does it.
But isn't that how we do it too?
Right. Like I can't explain how my brain makes that connection. So, but it's kind of neat. Another obviously you mentioned the jobs thing, and I think well, I'll get to this a little more. There's something called prompt engineering. Like there's actually a way to correctly prompt an AI chatbot and get a positive result or a really good result. But the average prompt and conversation involves 9 words from the prompter of a chatbot, and then they move on. They
Wow.
say, "Oh,
Okay.
what does this mean?" And that's it. They use it like a search engine, and that's not really maximizing the potential of AI.
So where do you see, w- like, a timeline? Where do you see AI is 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now?
So I think what's going to happen is you're going to see a lot more summarizing. I think the days of the uh, person who has a secretary are probably numbered. I think a secretary has to step up and has to be able to add more. Probably the secretary will be using AI if they maintain their jobs. They'll have these things automated um, to where they can do secretarial work for multiple people. And I don't know that secretary is the appropriate term. I'm sure it's problematic for some reason, but I think that, like I said, any of these menial tasks, you'll start to see change. Now, there will be gatekeepers who say, well, somebody has to review this. So I don't think it's that they're going to lose their jobs. I think it's just their jobs will change. I think, yes, you will have some people genuinely lose their jobs, but it won't be these mass layoffs. Even Elon Musk, when before he went off the deep end, was saying that he actually felt that technology was going to displace enough people that we would actually need um, universal basic income.
So let me ask you this question then. So you made me think about about something. So in terms of, let's say, restaurants,
Hmm.
instead of having multiple hosts, maybe we just need one, because any reservations are automatically fielded by AI and scheduled.
Well, this is already kind of happening. We're not necessarily using AI, but you do have these models being used by Open Table and things like that. I mean, when I go to Cooper's Hawk,
Right.
Tend to book it on Open Table. If I show up and put my name in, they put it in Open Table. So
But there's people calling though.
there
There's
are,
people calling.
but I call places regularly now, and I'd say probably 2 to 3 out of every 10 have AI chatbots where they say, just tell us what you want. Now, the
Okay.
quality isn't there in my opinion, but it may just be that they didn't invest in the right technology. So I do see that changing, but I think in the realm of places, one of the things articles I found said that like restaurant staff probably safe. There's too many unknown variables in the restaurant business. Um, your job may change, but it's not going to go away. There's too many things you can't predict, and there's too many things that require manual intervention. Um, but I think mostly where you'll see this is in office environments, where
Okay.
if he has have displacement,
So like research stuff.
research,
So
business analysis.
so like attorneys.
Yeah, but that's problematic as well. And this is why I say like your work will change; it won't go away.
But
There
I
was
mean,
that.
like attorneys often use assistants to research information.
Yes, but what you saw a couple weeks ago in one of the politicized articles was you had a Trump attorney using AI to develop arguments that made up documents, just completely made up
Really?
cases. And the judge ostracized him, like, you didn't read this? You didn't check this? So yeah, I can get AI to do my code, but I can't just promote it to
Right.
production. I
Right.
have to actually test it and look
Right.
at it. So again, my work has changed already, but I don't feel at any. I'm not concerned about losing my job,
Okay.
and
Well,
I'm
that's good.
probably one of the markets that's most likely to be afraid of losing their jobs because AI can do some amazing things. There are actually things called vibe coding. Websites like Lovable, Bolt, Firebase. There's something called Code, where you just tell it what you want. I want an app that does this, and it'll start building an app for you. You don't even have to
Oh wow.
understand programming. But again, if you tell it I want an app that does this and it gives it to you and it doesn't do that, then you have to explain to it what it needs to do to correct it.
Right.
So my job hasn't changed. I've been using AI to do certain things in my job, but if I didn't know what I know, it wouldn't be able to help me. You do have to have a certain level of knowledge. So I don't think AI taking our jobs is a concern. But like
Well,
we have energy and resource consumption is a fear because it does take a lot of electricity um, and a lot of materials. My biggest fear is overdependence and misinformation because you have these people who grew up with this stuff. And so they didn't need to learn how to remember all this stuff and how to do things. So, like, if I've always had this chatbot that could explain everything to me, do I really need to learn it or do I feel a need to learn it? And then once I become overdependent, if four companies in the world own 90% of the AI model power. You've got Grok or whatever, you got Meta, you have Google's Gemini platform, you have OpenAI. It's like four companies. Elon already showed us he's willing to manipulate. What happens if all four of those companies say we're going to manipulate people and we're going to manipulate the
well,
information?
the funny thing in regards to what you said is that when I was younger, if you asked me for the phone number of anyone that I knew, I could tell you. Um, I can't do that anymore
Yeah,
because there hasn't been the need. I mean, the only one of the only phone numbers that I can tell you that I remember is the is my mother's cell phone number. Um, and the reason why I remember it, I won't tell you the first part, but the last four digits are 5940, is because when I was on the phone with my wonderful Aunt Robin, um, one year, this is probably like 15, oh God, at least 15, 20 years ago. And I was asking her for my mother's cell phone number. She goes, it's your mother's age and my age,
yeah.
5940. They're not that far apart,
Okay,
but that stuck with me.
that works.
That was like, gotta laugh, and I remembered it. But I used to be able to remember all kinds of different numbers and facts, and when it becomes more accessible to me, I'm less likely to remember it because there's no need.
Yeah, why do I need to know that? Because it's in this
Yeah.
device that I carry with me 24 hours a day.
So let's, wrapping it up, let's look at, ultimately short term, long term.
So I want to talk about this.
Okay.
This is I'm with you.
Okay.
These are some fun, interesting
All
things
right.
that I
Talk to me.
think, and these are just things to think about what
Talk to
AI
me.
does and can do. One thing, a little scary, image identification. We've already seen this.
Right.
It'll facial recognition and all that. Um, uh, Using it to challenge your logic on things. This is something it could really be used for. If you think you know something and you think you've thought it through, just saying, "Hey, want to bounce something off of you." Just talk to it like you would a therapist or just a good friend,
Right.
and see what it says. Um, let's see. One of the things, big, obviously, consumer research using AI to help you pick out a refrigerator or whatever it is would be a good one. Um, Brainstorming is big. I think that goes back to the creativity topics that we were talking about. Um, One thing I really liked was using it to practice difficult conversations. For instance, and I'm not divorcing my wife, if you were having relationship troubles and you had reached the point where you needed to tell your spouse that you were getting divorced, you might even ask an AI engine, "Hey, here's all the information. I mean, here's a description of my wife. Here's how she tends to react to things. I need to tell my wife I want a divorce. What would you recommend?"
Oh
Now,
God, help me.
I mean, again, or I need to ask for a raise at work. I need you to play the role of the boss who's not eager to give raises or not.
Yeah,
And so, like, I really like that one, and I think that will be a more frequent usage.
that's helpful. But in regards to some things that you said in regards to asking the chat bot, hey, let me talk to you. There's also been instances where that's been detrimental. There was
Mhm.
a recent case where a guy, and I was trying to look it up, but apparently the page has gone off my phone. There was a guy who had known mental issues, and that it only made it worse. So
Mhm.
that to the point where it made him think that he had the ability to travel through time.
Yep. And there are some real risks there for people who have mental illness. But I would argue that just everyday life has similar risks, and I don't know that that's really an argument against AI.
By the way, the wine's gotten better too.
It has. I think it
Yeah.
opened up really nicely. I think two other ones. Apparently, people can create avatars for themselves. There was a great Black Mirror episode about this where the woman's boyfriend or spouse died, and they took all his social media and generated this avatar, and
Oh, okay.
eventually they create a body. I mean, it was a whole thing. But people are actually creating avatars for
Well,
themselves.
what about that? That is it. Is it on Hulu or Amazon Prime? Um, the show where people's consciousnesses were uploaded.
Yeah, upload. Yeah.
Upload. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, these are things that could potentially happen, and the quality of that consciousness, how much of it is you, how much of it isn't, I don't know.
Right.
Me, because I've stepped off of social media, I think if you tried to create an avatar without my permission, would have a hard time.
I'll just give feed it all the info.
Yeah. Another thing that I think is just so special, um, you can actually have an AI boyfriend or girlfriend. There are a number of
There's
webs.
people that got married.
Yeah, yeah. And I actually had a thought, because you can
I'm not that
sort of
desperate.
coach and build this agent. There are people who are worshiping AI. It's already happened. It's a real thing. But I actually thought to myself, like, if I could teach a model to create a persona as an agent that took the teachings of Jesus and Muhammad and Buddha, and just pick whatever I want for as far as their backgrounds, and develop themselves as a deity. I want you to respond in this manner. As you converse with it, it would give you feedback that way. And it's an interesting idea that because you can create these agents, you can kind of do whatever you want. It's a fun playground. I just want to. I think my last thing that I would recommend to everybody is get out there and play with it. I've heard of people saying, I want to have a conversation with my favorite character from my favorite book and tell the chat bot to respond as that character. And they're really good at it.
I
And
just
you can
had
have a lot of fun.
I just had AI create a god.
There you go, man.
It has I basically said create a god based on the best aspects of the major gods known to us today. And it it the name is Solmara.
Solmara. All right.
Solmara, the all harmony. Sol for light, Mara for wisdom and mystery. A name that suggests both clarity and depth. And then it has the domains are wisdom and justice, creation and art, compassion and mercy, strength and protection, balance and nature, rebirth and transformation. It
Rebirth and transportation.
transformation. It says Somara is genderless and ever shifting, appearing to each person in the form they most need. Sometimes radiant and warm like a sunbeam, other times cloaked in shadow and mystery, guiding through the unknown. Their eyes are galaxies, their voice a blend of every language, yet instantly understood. And it goes into length. Core teachings are truth without compassion is cruelty. Compassion without truth is chaos.
But if you had access to build an agent here,
Yeah,
you could take and say, hey, for the rest of this conversation, as this agent, I want you to respond as Solmara or whatever.
right.
And then you could say, hey, Solmara, I'm having this problem in my life. And can you give me some advice based on here's what's going on?
Yeah,
And they'll ask you questions. And like people are doing this. It's really
yeah.
scary in some ways, but cool in others.
I'm gonna create a church now.
Do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, like I said, my bottom line is just try it out, play with it, see what you can do with it. It's an interesting and fun practice.
What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, we'll all be worshiping Solmara.
There we go.
So, all right. Anything else for you, Brad?
No, I'm good.
Next episode's topic. I think it's yours.
Yes. So because we're going on a cruise in a month, less
Okay.
than a month, we're gonna be talking about reasons to cruise and tips on what you need to do to prepare for your cruise. What's
So
gonna
I have a lot of ideas on this, but I
I know
kind
you
of
do.
hope that both of our listeners will send in some feedback as well.
Sounds good to me. Um, and speaking of which, just make sure we are on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. We're on the email is winewhiskeyandword@gmail.com. The website is winewhiskeyandwords.com. And but you can always find us anywhere and everywhere. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We're not on X. Fuck Elon. Um,
Yeah, I mean, and if you can't find us, just ask an AI chat bot where to find wine, whiskey,
there.
and words.
You know what? Actually, I want to find that out right now.
All right, we're gonna do you a
Let's
service here.
let's see.
Brad's gonna
Uh,
ask Chat GPT. No, oh, he's asking Meta AI. All right.
is this no? This is Chat GPT.
Oh, I'm sorry. I saw the book face back there. What did you ask it, Brad?
Um, where can I find Wine, Whiskey, and Words podcast? And it's searching the
This
web.
is gonna be amazing.
Uh, Apple, Spotify, the official website. It has it. YouTube.
Amazing.
It has
Yeah.
it. It has everything.
See?
So, you know what? I'm also gonna ask, who is the better host
I bet it's
on
gonna
the
hedge. I bet it's gonna
podcast
not answer.
Wine with?
It's gonna be like, well, they both have their own
So,
qualities.
who is the better host on the podcast Wine, Whiskey, and Words? Is it Brad or Daniel? Um, okay, it's good. It's got. Let's be honest. Brad brings the structure, the wine knowledge, and the carefully worded chaos. Daniel brings the wild cards, the whiskey, takes, and at least 3 conspiracy theories per episode.
That is amazing.
If you want, it says, if you want insight, a touch of class, and someone who probably did research, Brad's your guy. All right. So
See, AI is
officially,
not always
AI
correct.
is wrong.
AI is not
It says
always correct.
if you want unpredictable rants, raw honesty, and someone who definitely didn't do research but still somehow makes sense, Daniel's your chaos spirit guide.
What have you
It has
told this
us
to?
opposite.
Yeah.
We has us flipped.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
All right. Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed this episode, and I'm sure we both hope you enjoyed this episode, and I look forward to actually the next couple. I think we're gonna have a good few here that are a lot of fun.
Sounds good.
All right, sounds good. Cheers.
Cheers.